like this one that we heard of a few days ago. It's been about a week now, happen. I mean, this is a question many people are asking, and they're just wondering how could someone get back in an MRI scan room with a necklace, that heavy weighted chain, and not be stopped? It's a good question to ask because most of you have had MRIs in a hospital. That's the difference here. This was an outpatient center. I have been doing MRI for over since 2006, and I've been a radiologic technologist for 23 years. I've trained on different MRI scanners and trained others on them. I've taught MRI. I understand how this could be very confusing as to how could this type of accident happen and injure someone to this degree of them losing their life. As we know, MRIs are huge magnets and they are not to be played with. But what is even more scary is that MRI scanners are sometimes unregulated. Not every place has the same requirements that a hospital would require. So there are different requirements, licensing, inspections that have to happen. But the thing is, it doesn't matter if it's an open MRI or a closed MRI, it's still a magnet. And they just can't be flicked off by a switch. The power is just so strong. And nobody should play with it. That is why we have certain parameters and protocols we should always follow as MRI technologists. Again, for me, I only can speak for myself. I have no knowledge other than what you all have of this situation, which is what the news is reporting, which, in my opinion, is not factual. You cannot believe everything you see on the news. So I'm just here to talk about not the situation in particular because I don't know, but I'm here to inform you as the public what you need to do if you are getting an MRI scan. What should you expect when getting an MRI scan? What should you do? What should you not do? I'm going to tell you some of the things that have helped me to keep my patients safe and also keep myself safe when getting an MRI and giving an MRI to patients. So I have been a patient, but I'm also a technologist. And let me know in the comments if you have ever had an MRI scan before. I would love to know that. That's the question people want to know. So we got a poll that's coming up. I would love for you all to answer that poll. Let me know. I want to know if you guys actually have had a scan before. So if you are getting an MRI scan at a hospital, this is what you need to know. At a hospital, most hospitals have you fill out, even outpatient centers, they're going to have you fill out a form that asks you several questions, usually 4 pages of questions front and back, or at least 2 pages front and back. They're going to ask you, have you ever had an MRI scan before? Have you ever had the contrast dye? If so, did you have a reaction? It's going to ask you, have you ever had a surgery before in the last 6 to 8 weeks? Or have you had a surgery on your brain, your eyes, in your face area? They're going to ask you, do you have certain implants in your body? Do you have any pain pumps, medication pumps? Do you have jewelry on? Have you had a tattoo? Do you have a tattoo or permanent makeup? All of these questions may seem very invasive. You may not want to answer them. It's going to ask you, do you have a penile pump? Do you have tissue expanders or breast expanders in tissue expanders in your breast? All of these things are very important. Did you swallow a pill cam? Have you had a colonoscopy in the last 2 to 3 months? And if so, where did you have it? It's so important to answer these questions. And the reason that question and other questions are important is because if you're at a particular hospital, they know, like I worked at one hospital, they used one type of stent, and that stent could actually get an MRI the same day. They used it from the same manufacturer. So they knew if you had a stent and they put it in 2 hours ago, you were good to get an MRI that same day. Hospital wide, that's what all the surgeons use to put in stents. So when they ask you, do you have a stent? You say yes. Did you have it at this particular hospital? They'll know, yep, you've got an MRI safe stent. You can have your scan done, your MRI scan done today. That's why those questions are there. Have you ever had a BB, a bullet, shrapnel, any of those things in your body? When did you have a bullet in your body? That's very important because bullets years ago have a lot more iron in them than ones of today. So if you have a bullet from 1945, Um, that's going to be different from a bullet from 2015. That bullet long time ago had way more iron in it. So it's going to be attracted by that magnet a lot more than the other one. I hope this is making sense. If this is shedding more light onto how this could have happened. So we don't know what type of, I mean, there's speculation out there that this person had a bike chain around them, an exercise weighted chain. We don't know until documentation from lawyers, if that is the case, happens. That's when you actually find out the truth, or sometimes just you find out a little more detail. Not always, the truth doesn't always come out in litigation. It's still, they say this, they say that. Unless you have camera proof, you really don't know what happened. It's the text word against the husband, against the wife's word. And it's very sad, but I'm going to say this before, once you fill out all that paperwork, whether you're at a hospital or outpatient center, you have different zones. Now, I could go into all the zones, but I'm going to tell you, most people do not remember zone one, zone two, zone. Most people work in healthcare don't even know the zones, and they take safety tests. So I like to keep it really basic. You have different areas of a hospital and outpatient waiting rooms that everybody's in. That's a certain distance from the MRI suite where the actual MRI scanner is. Anybody can be out there in the waiting room. Now, once you come past the waiting room, is when we start to get a little dicey here. This is when we start to really be careful of who is coming back closer and closer to that scanner. And it's important because once you get past that zone two, or that past that waiting room area, now you're making it into that zone two area, which gets closer and closer to that MRI scanner. If patients have a pacemaker or defibrillator that's not MRI safe, we run the risk of causing them problems. It could shut it off even if they're not inside the MRI scan room. This is important because when you start to bring non-patients back towards the MRI scanner, you run you run many risks. A risk of what happened with the husband walking into the MRI scanner room, whether he was brought into the room or whether he walked in on his own. We're going to talk about how that could have been avoided, in my opinion. Before you bring them out of that waiting room, if they're not the patient, me personally, if you're not helping the patient undress, you're going to stay out there in that waiting room and they're going to undress themselves. And then they're going to come wait in my MRI waiting room, which now puts them closer to the scanning area, which at that point, only people that have been screened can be back in that area. Now, some people say, well, they have to have their family members back there for moral support. There's no way I'm letting anybody in that room that's not getting a scan. I'm sorry. I don't let family members come in and hold your hand while you're getting a scan. There's no need for it. You can't move. I need you to be still. Usually that means they're going to have to be around the back of my scanner, which is the stronger part of the scanner. Not happening. I barely walk back there. It's just too much, too many variables, which means if they go in that room, they should change too. I'm going to tell you. I remember we had to let a family member in once, and you know what we did? We made the family member change too. They thought it was just over the top. Why are you making me change? Because you want to go in the room. And I don't trust that you're not sneaking in any contraband. I'm not risking my job and my safety because I am in that room with whatever flies in there. I could get caught between the person and wheelchair, stretcher, anything. You have to look out for not only the patient, but yourself as a technologist when it comes to MRI safety. I hope this is making a lot of sense. Um, And the main thing of the MRI scanner, after you do that, if someone does have to come back to the dressing room to help a family member change, I would send them back out to the waiting room. Once they've helped them change, they can go back out there and wait. Once we're done and it's time to bring that person back into the dressing room to get changed into their clothes again, I'll have the family member brought back to help them get changed and to take them on out. Other than that, that's as far as you're going in my room. That's as far. Now, I did work at a place where they were adamant that you could not tell family members they couldn't come back. And I'll tell you what happened. They had no respect for the magnet at all. And I'm telling you, I'm surprised that they're not on the news. These things are just they're just ticking time bombs. I remember one time this family member wanted to come back. It was a friend of the doctor who owned the scanner, and they brought like the whole family. It was a boatload of people. They took up all the chairs back there. The patients didn't even have anywhere else to sit. And I had to say they've got to go. They're taking up all the seats. They were peeking around the corner, coming to me. Oh, can I see the scan? Like literally showing up behind me from the waiting room. Like I didn't hear them walk by and they're standing behind me looking over this. Can I look and see? These things are not safe. They are not safe. They're not acceptable. And this is how accidents happen. Again, if you're getting an MRI scan, try to work with the facility and make sure you change when they ask you to change out of everything. I change my patients all the way down to just their underwear and they wear a gown or they wear scrubs that are provided for them by the facility I work at. I personally don't let family back even past the waiting room. If you must have someone come back because you've been given some type of relaxation drug or something to help you kind of mellow out, I'll let them come to the dressing room with you so that way you can kind of be steady on your feet when it's time to change. But then I send them back out to the waiting room. I, but in most places in a hospital, even our waiting room where patients change, there's a coded door or some kind of entry that is coded or badge specific to get in. And that door is never left open. So you can't even get into the room before the scanner room, which is usually closed. Now, I did work at a place once that had a ferromagnetic actual it was a scanner around the door. It was made into the door frame. So anyone in and out would ding, ding, ding. If you had something on, of course, all the technologists ding because our badges most of the time. Or we had stuff on our scrubs like buttons. But most of the time, I pat myself down before I walk in the room every time because I use an ink pen when I'm working at the scanner. And sometimes we do put that ink pen back in our pocket. We're not perfect. It happens. But what you won't usually find for us working in MRI is scissors back at our desk. We usually don't have you. It's hard to find scissors in MRI. I've worked at one place where they had MRI safe scissors and they were worthless. They were not good cutting scissors at all. They just need to get rid of those. But they would never run a danger of getting stuck to the MRI scanner. This was a very responsible place, but the other responsible ones just don't have scissors in the MRI department. You won't find paper clips in the MRI department normally. Those things do not happen when they are taking MRI safety very serious. No, I'm not a doctor. We are radiologic technologists who specialize in things such as MRI, CT, radiation therapy, interventional. And today we're talking about the recent MRI accident and how to stay safe when you're getting an MRI scan. Um, yeah, you definitely want to remove jewelry. My mom was so upset she has to remove her jewelry to be with her underage son. We had to explain to her uh was about safety numerous times. Yeah, we get people that get really upset. I had a lady that like went and complained to me at management because she had a huge ring. It was a beautiful ring, honey. It was gorgeous. But there are several reasons why I make people lock their jewelry up. Number one, people will accuse you of stealing their stuff. I've been accused of stealing $20 from a man who hid it from himself one time because he thought I was going to steal it. I don't know. But he hid it from himself and called back to security and told them I stole his $20 because he couldn't find it. And the last place was in my room. And I was like, what in the world? I didn't take your money. I didn't even know you had money. But this, I'm telling you, I had a man say that I stole his dentures. I had a man say I stole his glasses, that I threw away his hearing aids. Like, we get blamed for everything. And I don't need the glasses. I got my own. I don't need the hearing aids. But I'm telling you, for safety reasons, I let people lock things up. She was so upset at me that I wouldn't let her bring it in the room with her. And I'm like, I got 3 other people that I made put their jewelry away. And the sign says lock all jewelry away for that reason. And I don't know if your jewelry's going to fly across the room and slap me in the head before it hits the MRI scanner. I don't know. So I choose just to across the board. This is another reason why I am just the same way with everybody. Nobody can ever accuse me of doing one thing with one patient and not the other. If I ever got called into litigation, everyone that knows me knows I change all my patients. Everybody changes. I don't care. Even my patients in wheelchairs, they change. It might be a hassle, but you change. You got into your clothes at home, you can get into the scrubs and change out of your clothes here. It it may be an inconvenience, but I would rather inconvenience you than injure you. or something worse, right? That just makes sense to me. And that is how it works in when I do MRI. Because I do multiple modalities, sometimes I'm doing CT, sometimes I'm doing MRI. There are two different modalities. So I have to make sure for me, when I'm in MRI mode, I'm always following the rules because in CT is totally different. I don't have to change my patients in CT. So sometimes you could get kind of confused as to what you're doing today. And for me, just following structure helps me to be able to make sure I follow the rules, keep my patients safe in MRI. I don't get injured, I don't get hurt, but at the same time, it does irritate people when we have them fill out those forms. I get people that'll say no to everything on the form, and then when I walk them back and I question them and I say, "So you put no that you've never had a pacemaker?" "Oh, I got a pacemaker." "You check no on here." Or you don't have a prosthetic leg or a prosthetic limb? "Oh, yeah, I do." "You checked no on here." Like, really? Come on, don't do me this way. It's so important that not only we go by what's on the form, but we also double check. And if someone is not supposed to be in that scan room, which is only a patient and the technologist, they should not be back beyond the waiting room. And if they go to the dressing room, they need to go right back out to the waiting room once their loved one is done. Because people don't respect that, unfortunately, in hospitals, people scream and yell in pain. That is normal. Not that we ignore it or we get used to it, but it is very normal that patients scream and holler when getting off MRI scan tables. They've been laying on this hard, long table for a long time. Most people, "Oh, my back." I've seen people burst out in tears getting a simple lumbar MRI scan because they've been laying there for 20 minutes and now their back is all seized up or their knee cramped up. And trying to get someone off of that little table is not always easy. So, as an MRI technologist, you have to work with your patients. I personally, in outpatient centers, you don't have a lot of tools available to you, and a lot of times you're working by yourself. So I am very clear with my patients on giving directions before they ever enter my room. And you have to kind of set down a law. I hate to say that, but you got to set the rules for everybody as an MRI technologist, not just the patients. But you've got to set the law as to how this is going to run. Because people will try to take over, especially when they're regulars or they're in with a doctor or they're VIP. There's only one way to get off the table, and that's either to roll on your side and push up slowly, which takes time for some people to roll on their side. The table is not that wide, but I know you're not going to fall off. I do this all day long. People that's 400, 500 pounds, they all roll onto their side. This table is very strong. Most tables hold 550 pounds. But I have my patients roll, take your time, take a breather in between. I'll stand behind you if you want me to. That makes sure you don't roll off, but I promise you won't roll. I talk them through the whole thing. I make sure they know this is how you're going to get up. Your other option is to pull yourself up. I don't personally allow people to pull on me. I will use a sheet behind them. So if they're laying, I use sheets that people lay on. Sometimes some places only have paper sheets, but you got to have something somewhere. So I use a sheet, some type of sheet or a pillowcase behind them, or I get a walker or a wheelchair that's MRI safe. And I'll put that in front of them. And if they can't roll into their side or come straight up, what I do is hold on to that wheelchair or walker in the front and let them grab onto it. And they can pull and yank all they want till they get up. People can get up. It just may take longer. They may holler and scream, but they are not going to be hurt. They're not going to injure themselves. They're going to just have to use a little muscle sometimes and get through a little pain to get up. Because this is an area that you cannot bring a lot of people into. It's very dangerous. When I worked at a children's hospital, that was the best MRI safety I've ever been around in my life. When I tell you it's locked down and a radiologist support everything, managers support, if you break rules, your coworkers, other MRI techs will pull you to the side and chat with you. I mean, like it's team all day long. You're working because you have in children's, you have the technologist, it's usually two technologists, or if it's just one, then you've got at least one or two nurses. You've got a doctor because they put most children to sleep for MRIs. So you've got all type of equipment in there, monitoring equipment that's MRI safe. You've got um, anesthesiology equipment. You've got all kind kind of stuff in there. You IV poles, you got to make sure. And the nurses, you're dependent on the nurses doing what they're supposed to do. They're dependent on you. Everybody's got to be screened before they walk through there. Each time, if you walk out the room, you got to be re-screened to come back in. And they have a ferromagnetic detector around their door as well. But you're wandered down and you walk through that. Like you get double whammy security before you go into this particular children's hospital. That is why years ago you heard of that one incident with the oxygen tank with the young boy that was killed with the MRI scanner. That was years ago, I think in the 80s. You have not heard about a children's hospital having an incident with an MRI scanner with an oxygen tank. Now there have been some with the temperature. We try to make sure your temperature is a certain degree before you get an MRI, because if you're hot already and running the temperature, you can suffer burns during an MRI. People don't know that. So people think just projectile damages can happen with MRI. No, burns can happen as well. These are other reasons why we don't let people in. I had somebody one time sneak some contraband, but no, it was they snuck some keys into their mother who had dementia. And I'm like, what? And I learned a lot of stuff early on in my career. Do not do. I'm telling y'all from experience. Don't let people back in the room. I don't care. There's no reason. It will get you in trouble every time. I am not joking. I am not joking. It will get you in trouble every time. You want to be nice. You want to be helpful. I don't lift people. And you see how much I weigh. I'm not some big muscle bound person, but I use my tools and techniques available to me. Some places have Hoyer lifts. I remember working in a place that had a Hoyer lift. Techs didn't want to use it. They were like, oh, it's too much to use it. I don't really know how to use it. So the department offered us training. Oh, I don't want to do this training. It was so simple. I'm gonna tell you, I used it every time. I would send patients back up to the room as because we worked with a spinal cord injury hospital, and if they didn't bring the patients over with that Hoyer lift sheet up under them, I sent them back. Y'all need to put them back on that sheet because there's no way I can move somebody, even if it's 10 of us. There are things that can injure people by moving them over. Things can happen. Stretchers move, people fall, people hit the stretcher on their back, sliding over on the slide board. Slide boards come out. All kind of stuff happens. If you got a a Hoyer lift or any type of thing, use it. Use it. They got these blow up mattresses now that, oh my goodness. I worked at a place that had it. I was like, oh, I'm using this every time. They only come from the ER with that. And I'm going to hook that little vacuum up and it like slides them over like they're on like a slide at the Ferris wheel. It is so much fun, y'all. But it safely moves the person up. Even the person is like, whoa, that was pretty fun. And it's MRI safe. Like there are so many tools out there that I feel like if your imaging center does not have a stretcher, that's the other thing you run a risk in is working at imaging centers that don't have stretchers. If you're doing contrast or you're doing any kind of exam where people might not be able to get up and you need to raise the table doesn't undock from the scanner, you need to raise that table. Any emergency can happen. You just don't have to have emergencies with contrast. Emergencies can happen at any time with MRIs. How are you going to get a patient off the table who cannot get up or is having an emergency? You need a stretcher. You move that stretcher over, you slide them over, and you get them out that room so they can get emergency help. That is the best way to work in outpatient centers. If you don't have it, speak up for yourself, advocate for yourself. If you're a patient, ask questions before you make that appointment just because, say, the place is cheaper or whatever, just ask questions. Not that outpatient centers are bad at all, because I've worked at tons and they are fantastic. I've worked at some hospitals that don't follow the rules. I mean, it's just know the rules, which is number one, change your patients. And patients change like they ask you to. And number two, don't bring non-patients back to the scanner area. And I'm talking about past the dressing room. If they have to help someone change, send them back to the waiting room. There's no need for anyone to come in and be in that scan room unless they're getting a scan. There's no need. You can get front desk to help you pick up a patient, move a patient. You can help the patient and the patient can do the work themselves. I've seen patients who are really limited in their mobility from the waist on down, very little movement in their hands, and they get themselves up and down and it just takes a while, but they do it. I'm going to tell you, people can do more than what they're saying. Don't be pressured to skip the rules or to just not kind of figure out another way to do it. Get a staff member to help. versus a family member, because you run into problems like this. Always stay safe, whether you're getting an MRI, whether you are giving the MRI. And if you choose a hospital or an outpatient center, ask the questions. Do you all change everyone? And if you get there and they don't want to change you, ask to be changed. That's okay. You can say, no, I want to change out everything. Give me a gown or scrubs. I'm okay with changing everything. Leave everything at home that you don't want to lock up. So that way you don't forget anything behind, or you don't miss and bring anything in. Be very careful about asking to bring family members back. We want to leave with the family members we brought with us, and we want you guys to have a safe MRI. Hopefully this was helpful. If you want to learn more about MRI scans and how to safely have one, or if you want to become a radiologic technologist, you could check out any of my videos. And also, I wrote a children's radiology book. So I want you guys to start young, learning about medical imaging and what we do. This book I created, you can get it in my shop right here on YouTube. This book is going to tell you from an early age all about medical imaging, and hopefully it helps stop some of the accidents that we are seeing happen in medical imaging today. Because we'll educate people earlier about what we do, and that is more than just take pictures of bones. We deal with very high powered equipment that we are skilled to operate in, but we also need the public's help to understand that these are powerful machines. And we want to give you the best exam. We want to give you the safest exam, but we need your cooperation. And technologists, take pride in what you do. Stand up, advocate for yourself. Don't let anyone bully you or push you to do things that are unsafe. Speak up for yourselves and speak up for your coworkers. Start negotiating and working with management and owners of centers to help them see where some gaps need to be filled, where they are falling and failing patients, and let them know. Don't be in fear that they're going to let you go. If they do, it's probably not the place you want to work at anyway. Somebody might be doing you a favor by telling you, we don't want you here because you don't want to follow the unsafe rules that we have. That's probably not a place you want to work. So hopefully this has been helpful. And again, thank you guys for supporting my page and my lives. Be sure to check out any more content that you want to learn about medical imaging. Have a good one.